Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Jump In with Jumi here on blackdoctor.org. I'm your host, Jumi, and today's episode is for you. Ladies, we are talking about periods, perimenopause, and menopause. We as women deal with so many things when it comes to our health, and our reproductive health is usually at the forefront of it. First we're dealing with monthly periods and visits from Aunt Flo, which are definitely uncomfortable and sometimes even downright debilitating. And then we get to the point where night sweats and irregular periods are commonplace. And then we get to the point where periods are gone, but it's accompanied by a whole host of new problems. So today we are going to unpack it all, from the painful periods to the annoying pauses. So are you ready to jump right in? Let me know where you're tuning in from. Make sure your friends and family know that you're watching. And let's get right to the show. It's time to introduce our guest. I'm bringing back one of my OB-GYNs who's been on the show before. If you tuned in to the last episode about vaginal health, you know those doctors came with all the info and a lot of energy, so I'm more than happy to have her back again. She is a warrior for women. She has over 16 years of experience as a board-certified OB-GYN, and she uses her passion and expertise to help others across various arenas. She's an experienced public speaker, has a product line for intimate wellness and beauty for women with dark skin, and she is a founder and CEO of Virtual GYN. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Sin. Hello, Dr. Sin.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So happy to have you back. I'm really excited for today's conversation. Before we get started, let's introduce our second guest. Second guest is Dr. Lakeisha Webb McMillan. She is a gifted speaker, an integrative OB-GYN, a hormone specialist, and an Amazon best-selling author. She has a passion for helping women struggling with depleting hormones, getting hormones balanced, regaining mental sharpness, and having energy that lasts the entire day, which I know we could all use a little more energy to last the entire day. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Lakeisha. Hello, Dr. Lakeisha.
Hello, ladies. I am so excited to be here.
Yes, thank you both for joining today. We've got so much to discuss. I'm super, super happy that you're both here. So let us jump right in. I want us to start about talking about painful periods. What is the deal with them? Why is it that some women get them and they're okay with some normal pain, and then others suffer and literally cannot function? What is going on with that? Dr. Sin, if you wanted to start us with that.
Sure. Well, commonly when young girls first have their periods, they're not ovulating yet, and they may not have any pain at all. And then in a few short months, the pain may start. And it's common for women to have some pain. Some women have more than others because of medical conditions such as fibroids, endometriosis. And then also, we notice that our pain is worse when our fat increases. When we start eating more red meat, things of that nature, it causes a lot of inflammation, and it can also make our periods very painful.
I did not know that. Red meat causes, like goat meat, if you eat too much of that, could cause extra painful periods? Really?
Diet is key to everything.
Okay. That is very good to know. So what about hormones? I know, Dr. Lakeisha, you are a hormone specialist. What is going on with hormones when it comes to painful periods?
Oh, just piggybacking off of Dr. Sin. And I just want to say, Dr. Sin is one of my super friends. So I'm just so excited stage with a fellow mogul and have this conversation. And so when it comes to painful periods, and we're talking about our hormones, a lot of times when we have this inflammation that occurs that Dr. Sin was talking about, it can be an overexpression of some of our hormones, especially estrogen. Estrogen is one of the big ones that can come in and kind of raise its ugly head. I mean, we need estrogen. Estrogen is so important in so many various different functionalities of just everyday living, but when she's out of control, then you become that grumpy Gretchen, is what I call it.
Grumpy Gretchen, yes. Oh, that is a real thing. So what about, when it comes to painful periods that are related to endometriosis and fibroids, those can contribute to it. What is happening there?
Absolutely. So when it's the same thing, it's actually it's a over response to estrogens. So we know that endometriosis, and Dr. Sen can probably talk a lot about that, because I tend to stay more on the side where you talked about that, painful pause. I love that. Where we're coming down to the end where the hormone levels aren't going as high.
Mm-hmm.
Come to endometriosis, we're talking about a response of cells that really should only be found in the lining of the uterus, which there are 3 layers of the uterus. And what we can find is that that central layer, the one that makes the cavity, is found in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And it responds the same way. When estrogen comes in, I say, think of estrogen as kind of like in charge of making the grass grow tall.
Mm-hmm.
The uterine lining starts proliferating, and think of progesterone kind of sort of as in charge of the lawnmower, right? And so it waits around for that signal to see if there was an egg fertilized this month, and if there was no egg fertilized, it says, okay guys, we can mow the lawn, basically.
Mm-hmm.
To hang around and make sure that the lawn doesn't get mowed until a certain time. Now when you have these cells kind of sprinkled throughout the abdomen, when you have it sprinkled over the ovaries, when you have it sprinkled even within the muscle layer of the uterus, there are different names for that. And so if it's sprinkled in the muscle layer, we tend to call that adenomyosis. Doctors love a lot of names. It makes
right. Yeah. What is adenomyosis? Okay.
So that's when those same cells are located in the muscle layer. So the muscle does not function the way it should. When it's sprinkled throughout the abdomen or even on the ovaries, you can get an endometrioma. Okay. Or you can get, just this endometriosis, which you have stages of it. Mm-hmm. And endometriosis is one of those pathological things that happen that really stumps the professor at times, stumps the doctor, as well as the patient. And my heart used to just ache for those patients.
Yeah.
You try to really help to ameliorate those symptoms they're having so they can be functional.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would go through series of various different treatments only to come to the fact that we have to take the uterus and the ovaries out.
Wow.
End result. But we wouldn't get there all the time with every single one. But sometimes there were some of those. And I remember when, maybe even Dr. Sen has an antidote. I have one patient, I remember her to this day. She was 37 years old, really young. And we came to this part. And when she came back to me after I'd done her laparoscopic hysterectomy and her oophorectomy, bilateral oophorectomy, she was like, I should have done this years ago. She was like, I can now function.
Wow. Wow. That is something. So there's so many steps that can be taken before you get to that moment or get to that point. So what are those steps before getting to that point that women experience as need to, can take before they get to that point? Dr. Sen, if you wanted to take that.
Sure. So as Dr. Lakeisha so eloquently explained, is that you have these endometrial cells. That's the cells in the lining of the uterus that are now outside of the uterus. Okay, they're all over the place. Now, you know how I like to say, you can take the endometrial cell out of the uterus, but you can't take the uterus out of the endometrial cell, okay? Mm. So they only know how to be who they are, endometrial cells. So when you have them on the ovaries, on the bowel, or whatever, certain times of the month, if you're not pregnant, there's going to be an inflammatory process for those cells to float off and you have a period, right? Well, they still try to do the same thing even when they're on your ovaries and bowels. So it causes an inflammatory response, which causes a lot of pain. And some women can even develop scar tissue. So the first step in controlling inflammation is anti-inflammatories, right? And so some people say, oh, well, I need to take Motrin all the time. Not necessarily. So I like to first talk about things that you can do at home that doesn't require someone like myself or Dr. Lakeisha. And that is different type of holistic anti-inflammatories such as turmeric, okay? That can work very, very well. Once again, watching your diet, okay? It is very beneficial. Now, when you come see me, I'm going to do some other things. You could definitely try Motrin at home. You should always take that with food. You do not want to take those type of medications on an empty stomach. You want to kind of be proactive. Don't wait till the pain is really, really bad. Jump on it ahead of time, because if you wait till it's bad, then it's harder to overcome. Now, some of the simple things that we may do in the office, first thing is try some birth control pills for you, right? So if we shut down that process, then most women are not going to have those symptoms. And there's such a host of even pills that's out there now that, they can go a year even without having a period, and that can be beneficial.
Are there some that are better than others, stronger than others? So like an IUD versus a traditional, not over the counter, but oral birth control pill. Does one work better than another?
It varies from person to person. It really does. Okay. But there are pills out there now that we can go an extended period of time before you actually have a period. Okay. Some women that just doesn't work well for them.
Right.
Now, other women may do well with the Nexplanon, and that's the rod, progesterone only rod that goes in the arm. That's good for 3 years, or a progesterone releasing IUD. Okay. Now, the copper IUDs are not going to help you in this situation.
Copper IUDs won't help. Okay.
No, but the hormone producing IUDs can. Once again, it's unpredictable who's going to benefit the most until we try it.
Until it's tried.
Usually those things work very, very well. So that's like our go-to, our initial go-to. We're going to try some form of birth control, likely pills, or we would try the Nexplanon or the hormone IUDs.
Okay. So if women are feeling like, oh, this is not working, the at-home relief is not working, I need to go talk to my OB-GYN, they can tell them all of this, that they're saying that there's all those different options that they want to explore potentially with them. Even though they might not know if it works, it's something to try.
Right. And the thing is that the sooner you're on managing these symptoms, the more likely it's going to improve your disease burden. Right? Because if you wait a long time, then you've allowed years of scar tissue.
What's a long time, Dr. Sen? What's a long time?
Well, I have women come in to see me who are literally in their late 20s, 30s, sometimes even 40s, right? And they've been dealing with this their entire life, since puberty, right? And they have not always their fault, right? As far as being aggressive with management, sometimes people just have not taken the opportunity to sit down, really listen to what they're saying, and then give them options for management. Teach them the things that they can do to help their symptoms.
Okay. Well, with that, I do want to now move on to the next phase, because if we're dealing with painful periods and it's happening, then we're going into the next phase, which is perimenopause. This is something that I was not aware of, I will say. Like, I was not aware of the extent of it and the fact that it can last for as long as it does in some women. So I know, Dr. Lakeisha, you are the expert when it comes to the pauses. So tell us, what exactly is perimenopause, and why do people call it the rocky road to menopause?
Oh, yes. My goodness. Now, I love to talk. So you're going to have to give me the 20-second timeout. The Sandman kind of, it's time to shut it down.
All right. I got you.
But, perimenopause is this time, I call it purgatory sometimes. It's that, and it can last for 10 years before you actually stop having your cycle.
Wow.
Let's have some foundation here. Let's talk about some definitions. So let's go to menopause. Menopause, the book definition of it, is 12 consecutive months without having a cycle. And that is very important, because absent of any hormonal type of therapy and you have a period after you've gone those 12 months, you need to be evaluated for endometrial cancer. Let's just say it. Let's just say the big monster in the room, because that is significant. So you go 9 months and have a period, you got to start the clock over. You have a period, start the clock over.
11 and a half months, you got to start the clock over?
Clock over. And I have had women come to my practice and they're like, I was right there. I was right.
Wow.
And And I'm like, well, it's actually, we really are grateful for this, because if you went this 12 months and had a period, we'd have to do some investigation. So that's kind of some foundation there.
Mhm.
Menopause, that's it. It's not the hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness. Not every woman gets those symptoms.
Right.
So a lot of women feel that, oh, if I didn't get it, I didn't go through menopause. Well, if you didn't have a period for 12 months, you're menopausal. Okay.
Right.
Let's just call it what it is. And so what can happen is you can start having a decline of hormones, such as like testosterone, which I've, found a doctor, I read her book, and she was, made this statement called, and actually diagnosed it as testosterone deficiency syndrome. And I love it, where you start having this decline of testosterone as early as your early 40s.
Wow.
Start having symptoms of decreased, motivation. Your mood is not the best. Your focus is not there. Your libido is gone. I mean, I can share my own story. When I was around that time, about 40, 41, I was exhausted. Now, I had a major life event that had happened of the loss of my father and my grandmother within a 10-month period of time, which also stress
Can
plays
contribute
a big
to.
part. Exactly.
So you touched on testosterone though. What about estrogen? So when does that start to fluctuate, and what happens when your body's not producing
That
it?
can start fluctuating too, not going as high as it used to.
Mhm.
But that's usually the last one that kind of falls off the trail.
Okay. Okay.
Usually you have testosterone that falls off and progesterone.
Okay.
And you start having these symptoms of decreased libido. You have, fatigue that's that has no explanation. You have weight gain, because testosterone does play a big role in retaining lean muscle, and lean muscle has more metabolically active cells.
Mhm.
So you start having these changes. I say women tell me they woke up in a body they don't recognize all of a sudden. And they're like, what just happened to me?
Wow.
And trying to figure it out. And so that's when I say you need to go to a doctor that knows how to test for certain hormone levels. Now, I say, don't just go in and say, test my hormones. That's a big umbrella. Okay.
What are the hormones? Like, let's make sure the viewers know, what are the hormones that the viewers need to know to say, doctor, I need you to test for, what is it?
They look for your testosterone. Look
Okay.
and there's two types of estrogen. There's estradiol and estrone and progesterone. Those are kind of the big three that I talk about. And so there are certain forms of testosterone. There's a total and a free testosterone you want to look at. And that's where I get into the weeds of it. So that it's not just, go in and say, just test my hormones. There's so many different things that we need to look at. And we need to also look at how the sex hormones are playing with the thyroid, playing with the adrenals. Make sure all of them are playing nicely together in the sandbox.
Wow.
So that's when I talk about, and these various different areas can start having dysfunction as early as 10 years prior to you going into menopause.
So the average age of women going into menopause, it's currently 51, correct?
Well,
Or is it fluctuate? 49 for Black women?
52 to 54.
Okay.
And so what you're talking about when you're talking about that's really more perimenopause, where they're starting to have irregular cycles. My periods are wacky is what I hear a lot of. They're not, I'm skipping months, or they're coming too close together. I just had a period. Why is it 3 weeks later I'm having another period? So that is very indicative of hormonal imbalance within this cycle that you're used to going into.
Okay. So for the viewers, there's a question. Can we get the names of the comments of the hormones to test for again? So you said progesterone, testosterone,
estrogen. So I actually have it in my book that I wrote, the other PMS, Your Survival Guide to Perimenopause and Menopause. In one of those chapters, I just told it to somebody, so that's why I probably have it on top of my head. I think and I actually list the different types of labs that you can ask for.
Okay. So you've talked about the hormones to test for, which we know is super important. What are these symptoms of perimenopause, in addition to the night sweats, in addition to just like not feeling like you're in your body? What are some of the other major symptoms of perimenopause?
You can have symptoms even as subtle as stimuli just feels different. So your partner's hand, that touch that used to turn you on, feels like you feel like sandpaper now. Well, it's really them. It's you. Your skin is actually different because your estrogen could be low. which means that you're not making as much as hyaluronic acid, which makes the skin hold on to more moisture and water and be more supple. You know, you have vaginal dryness. There's some people that start having vaginal dryness as perimenopause. And so sex just isn't fun and comfortable anymore. And this is where the conversations need to be had with you and your partner, because these is where the signals get mixed up.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to because you don't feel good. And they're thinking, well, what's the problem? And so that's a whole nother subject.
It's a whole nother situation, right?
Exactly. Weight gain is a big one that I hear a lot of women. It's the muffin top. You know, it's like all of a sudden, just in this midsection, I'm wearing clothes that I never used to have to wear before because I got to cover up some stuff. Working out, I'm doing the things, I'm eating right, but nothing's working. Is another big common complaint that I hear, as well as just, just not feeling themselves. They just don't even know how to explain it. They just don't feel themselves. So they're like, I used to be able to check off this and check that off and do this and do that and juggle this. And I just can't anymore. So I say that elasticity in the rubber band is gone.
Dr. Sen and Dr. Lakeisha, what do you tell women that come to you with these feelings and these, what is your advice to them? How do you help them manage something that could last for years?
Well, for me, the first thing I tell them is there's hope. You don't have to just suffer, right? There are things we can do to help you out. And so, as Dr. Lakeisha said, it's important to test your hormones to see where you are, to see if we can supplement in any way. I also want to know what kind of contraception you're using right now. Maybe that's not the best form for you. So there are a lot of things that we can do. We also want to know what supplements you're taking at home. When you go to the doctor, so often you give your list of medications, but you leave out all of the over-the-counter medications. Right? So those are very important to do. And it's important if your primary care doctor or your gynecologist is not asking you about your sex life when you go in for your annual exam, you need to tell them about it. Okay.
Well, what questions are they probing your sex life, or is it just basic questions that they need?
I always probe. Right? I want to keep you right. Yeah. And so, you know how they say offense is your best defense, right? The earlier we can catch a problem, the better. And it doesn't always have to be a medical problem. Right? If you're starting to notice more tenderness with sex, we need to know about it. If you're you wear the same cotton underwear, you think you're doing a great job with taking care of your vulvar area, or what I like to call the private face, but you're noticing it's a little more tender than what it used to be. I'm sweating more down there than what I used to. And it's bothering me. I can't wear white pants anymore. All these different things, we need to know all of that. So anything that deals with that area that is changing for you, do not wait for them to ask the questions. You just tell them. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll say, Dr. Sen said, almost all the things. I say to them, you're not crazy. I really validate, because a lot of times women have gone to their primary care is usually the first line of defense, and no disrespect to primary care doctors at all. It's just that there are times where their thought process is in one direction, as well as, let's not even get into the time that we don't even really have to really have some in-depth conversations. And so I validate them and say, you're not crazy, because they'll say, well, they told me all my labs were fine. Told me everything is normal, but something's not right. And as we go into and we talk about what their symptoms are and when things started happening, and dive into a lot of their past medical history, I even do a trauma type of a history as well, and talk to them about that. Then I go, okay, these are my thoughts, is usually what helps me to pause and be able to re-engage. And I say, this is what I'm thinking. This is how I want to be able to proceed forward. So these are the labs that I need to get, or this is the person I want to refer you to. So I'll reach into my Rolodex of super friends and say, hey, I need some backup here. I need you to see somebody for me. And that is the main thing, is just validating that you are feeling what you're feeling, and let's try and figure it out together.
I like the thing you mentioned about you do a history of, and you factor in trauma. There is a difference between the experience of a Black woman when it comes to menopause and other ethnicities. So how does that factor into the experience, and whether it starts early, whether it lasts longer? Can you all talk about that a little bit? Dr. Sin, I saw you.
Go ahead. I'll let Dr. Lakeisha go first.
No, go ahead, Dr. Sid. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, you just touched my heart when you brought that up. And for Black women in general, even those who have not reached menopause, there is a struggle with us in really dealing with our private face, right? And a lot of it is related to the historical wrongs that have occurred, and how our strong and resilient ancestors, what those women had to do to survive, right? And they taught those same survival techniques to their daughters, their granddaughters, to their nieces, to anyone within the community.
Right.
And one of those is that you don't talk about it.
Yep.
Right. And so when we're not talking about it, we don't know it. The other thing is, keep your legs closed and keep it super clean. Oh my goodness. Hold on one second. I cannot believe that. Sorry.
It's all good.
All right. Can you guys still see me?
We can see you. We can hear you.
Wonderful. So that's what we have to do. We have to make sure, I like to call it, my book will be launching July 29th, and it's called Beauty Below. And it's a guide to intimate wellness and beauty for dark skin. And my first chapter is called Black Vagina Confidence. Okay? Because it's so important for women of color to truly understand their history, so they can understand where they are, so they can understand how we have somewhat been disconnected to our female sexuality, right? And then they can embrace it and start taking the steps that they need to take to own it, and to really know about it and be comfortable walking in their own skin.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, Thurston, that's wonderful. And I'm going to be right there for your launch. I love it.
I'll be keeping you guys posted.
Thank you. When you talk about trauma and you talk about how we walk through the world differently, my thing is that I feel like I'm kind of like standing on top of a hill, kind of with this megaphone now, saying I'm having the talk 2.0, the part of the talk that your mother didn't get to have with you. Because like what Dr. Sin says, we didn't talk about it. It hushed tones. You heard the whisper of the change, kind of like, oh, and then the child, you're like, is it something that you catch? I mean, I avoid this because that doesn't look fun. Like it does.
Yeah, it does not.
But, and so normalizing it by saying, hey, you live long enough, you will pass this way. Here are some of the things that we've done to be able to make it a little less, so that you can, I always say this phrase, that you can glide into perimenopause and menopause and not slam into it.
What are those ways though? Because as women, like I'm not in perimenopause or close to menopause, but I would love to know what are some ways to slide into and not run into a brick wall when it comes to perimenopause and menopause.
Really know your body, know when it's changing, know what's different for you, because you live with you every single day.
Yeah.
You see your doctors at appointment times, at various different designated times in your life. You're going to see your GYN probably once a year. If you're pregnant, then you're going to see through that pregnancy. If you have a problem, you'll see them when you have the problem. You're going to see your family practitioner or your internal medicine doctor. You'll see them once a year for your annual, or when you have a cold, or when you live with you every single day. So you need to be your advocate. When something is different for you, say it and have somebody have the conversation with you. I tell women all the time, I say, you can fire your doctor. And they look
I love how every doctor comes on and says, you don't have to stay with your doctor. You can fire us. Like if you don't like us, you can fire us.
And I think
yeah.
there is something, there's a concept called narrative medicine. And what that means is that you and the doctor have literally come together, having a shared experience of something within life, just being human, being able to connect and come together to work with you through this particular time in your life. And so if you can't have that conversation, if you can't have that connection, you can find somebody else that can.
Yeah.
So I have women that will say, well, I tried to say this, or I tried to say they didn't. Okay, you don't have to stay with them. There are plenty of us, there are plenty of Dr. Sins, there are plenty of Dr. Lakeisha's out here. You do have to find us, because we're not necessarily standing on the side of the road with a big sign, but we're out there. There are doctors out there that want to treat the entire you, that want to listen to you. And so some of those symptoms are some of the things, like you said, what do you look for? When your body changes, when there's something definitely is different. I love being able to say, document, write down, because the more information you can give your doctor, the more details you can give us, helps us out. So document, put it in your little journal. This date, this happened, this date, and don't be ashamed to bring that and say, okay, well, I was actually noticing this is what happened, and kind of give us that global picture of what's been going on.
And that starts with like the hormone test. So like knowing what your hormone levels are. How often should women be getting their hormone levels checked, and when should that start?
I say start it when you feel something different, because hormones are going to change every cycle. That's the cycle. They go up and down with every 28, 30, 32 days. That's a normal interval. And I say, remember, get the count correct. Okay. So make sure you're counting from day 1 to day 1. Some are counting from the end of the time they stop bleeding till no. From day 1 to day 1, that's the cycle. That's the interval. So you want to see how many days are in that cycle, and is it consistent for you? Then you have some months that have 5 weeks. Then you have February has a little less. And so you feel like, oh my gosh, I just had 2 periods this month. But then you count the count.
And it's not really the same month.
Yeah. It's really, the count is correct.
Right.
So not necessarily getting your hormones checked at a certain time of interval every single time in your life, but when things start changing, you can start going to somebody that knows what to look for, and they can say, yep, this is a little different in terms of what you're telling me, because we got to put the whole thing together. I'm not just treating numbers. I'm listening to what you're telling me, and I'm looking at what's going on, and I'm putting together a picture so that I can help be your medical interpreter and help you understand what's going on.
Okay. So now I want to kind of turn to all the different things that happen when women are going through this, and what they can do to relieve it. So the hot flashes, the sleepless nights, the just general discomfort. What are some treatments, medical treatments, non-medical treatments that can be done to alleviate what we have to go through as women, but we might not have to go through as intensely?
Oh, lifestyle. Dr. Sin touched on it. When we talk about what goes in our body,
it's the hot flashes.
Hot flashes, I find that my women complain of more intense hot flashes when they're ingesting more processed sugar. Have more inflammatory types of things that they're putting in their body, more foods that are put in a package instead of closest to the ground. So I say, think of your food in terms of as close to the ground as possible. If it comes in a package, think twice before you put it in your mouth. Now, I mean, life happens, so you have to do what you have to do, but what you can do on a regular basis. So exercise, even. Those endorphins go off in your body and helping your liver to detox. Dr. Sin talked about turmeric. There are other supplements that I love having on board, something called DIM. It's a very short acronym it's called DIM, and a very long word. But what it does is it helps a particular enzyme in the liver, the COMT enzyme, to really package up estrogen the way it's supposed to and help you to get it out in your urine and in your poop. Okay, because if it hangs around, that's when you can become that estrogen dominant. So getting on DIM, making sure that you do some liver support, because that's the city dump. It takes care of everything.
Yeah.
So supporting the liver, those are things. Your water intake. Oh my gosh, something as simple as drinking water. And I'm sorry, I must confess, I'm Dr. Lakeisha, and I don't get my water in every day. But when I do, I feel so much better. When I actually do my ounces in half my body weight, oh my goodness, I do.
Wow. And these are things that can start early before
Yes.
you even get to these places so that it's not as bad. So all the younger ladies that are watching this should really be heeding this. I'm talking to myself right now. I really need to be heeding all of this that you're telling me so that, when it gets to later times. But this is really great information. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to make sure I got this in, is restorative practices.
Mm-hmm.
So what I call restorative things that will, restore you, because that's helping your adrenal system. That's a whole nother discussion too. But
Okay.
do things like breathing, like really taking time to do some breathing. I have a wonderful meditation and mindset coach, Dr. Carol Penn, and she has taught me
Oh, yeah, I know her.
excellent breathing techniques. I mean, she's taught me how alternate nostril breathing can literally reset and rewire my brain in about a minute.
Wow.
I do some soft belly breathing. I'll do box breathing at the end of the day if I'm really anxious. She's even taught me that there are different postures of meditation. So my ADHD brain that couldn't sit still with the sitting still, closing my eyes, I can do a moving meditation. It is awesome. Just literally sitting or standing and kind of rocking back and forth on my heels of my feet. As I'm doing this particular talk with you guys, I realize sitting down is not for me. I'm not okay. So I have to stand. I have to be able to move.
Yeah.
Doing yoga, that is a type of moving meditation. Swimming for me is, oh my gosh, that's my happy place. That's where I really can get some talks in with God. But doing those restorative practices, literally taking time for yourself to be able to restore, having intentional meditation times throughout the day can really help you to glide into perimenopause. Because as Dr. Sin was saying, we've said here, the stressors of life, the traumas of life literally show up in our physiology. They are imprinted on our cells and how our cells literally reproduce and repair themselves. And so we've got to kind of give them a little TLC and go, woo, 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 everything's okay, and help them repair themselves.
See, I'm so grateful that you said that, because I don't think that we think too much and too intently about how these traumas and these stressors affect every single part of our body from head to toe. And what you're saying, the restorative practices, they can really help to alleviate all of that, including this. I don't even think about it. And I'm just happy that you're reminding all of us about this. So as we get ready to wrap, I want to make sure I give you both a chance to really, continue to empower our guests. What do you want to leave them with when it comes to dealing with these painful periods of perimenopause and the menopause? Because we can't get rid of it, not the way that we should. But what do you want to leave today's viewers with?
Well, I would just say that there is hope. You do not have to suffer in silence. Speak up. Or alone. Speak up. And if you are not getting the help that you feel that you need, then go to the next person. Because there's someone out there for you and who can help you.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I just want to really drive home the point that stress is not the like, we wear these badges of stress around like it's something that we're supposed to be proud of. Now, life is life, and it will, greet you with open arms with a club on each side, ready to knock you down, right? But we have to do the things that help us to be able to show up the way that we're supposed to show up. So taking time out, and I use the illustration of being in the airplane, and they always say when that little thing drops, when the little mask drops, what are you supposed to do?
Take care of yourself first.
There you go, because you're no good if you're passed out. So a lot of us mamas, Dr. Sen knows, we want to make sure that, you know, everybody around us, and even if you're not a biological mother, you're a mother to a community, you're a sister friend, you're an auntie, you're a cousin, and you have this in you to make sure everybody's taken care of. Well, if you're crawling into bed every night, pulling the covers over your head, and you have nothing left in your tank, how good are you? And so I say, take the time. Dr. Carroll says there's a difference between self-maintenance and self-care. So going, getting our manicures, pedicures, and our hair done, that's self-maintenance. Oh, you need to go do that. Self-care are the restorative practices where you time out and you really carve out. You put you on your calendar, and it's a non-negotiable, just like a meeting at work.
Yep. Well, it's like Michelle Obama says, we got to start putting ourselves higher on our to-do list.
Yes.
Absolutely. So that's my tip to, you know, for the day. Put you on your calendar and make it a non-negotiable.
Yep. Self-maintenance, self-care, focus on you. Dr. Sen, Dr. Lakeisha, thank you so much for today. This has been amazing. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I know you've helped me out personally, and I can only imagine that you've helped all the women watching, whether they're watching live or they're watching this replay. So thank you to everybody watching. Thank you for being such an amazing audience. And I will see you all again on the next episode. If you want to check out Dr. Sen and Dr. Lakeisha, you can find them both online, and they've got books coming out. So mark their names down and you will see them again soon. Thank you all for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.